Hello, welcome to Artist Highlight Episode 2. This week, we're going to be taking a look at digital painters. Digital painting is essentially just painting, but then instead of using real paint and a canvas, we're going to be using, Photoshop or Procreate. And this artwork resembles a lot of normal painting in various degrees, some being smoother than others, some looking like actual canvas. And this is one of my favorite styles overall when it comes to the furry community, because the guys that are really good at this are just masters, and it's always just beautiful to look at. So without further ado, let's look at some digital painters. The first artist we're looking at is probably one of the most iconic digital painters in the whole furry fandom, and that is the absolutely incredible Thanshuhai. Thanshuhai also goes by Rikun. You've probably seen a lot of his work as people's profile pictures and icons around the internet. If it's not a profile picture, you've probably seen Thanshuhai's work with his incredible full illustrations that feature incredible backgrounds. I think the first words that would come to mind would be flipping gorgeous. That's just because he does have amazing headshots that have this really incredible attention to detail. He really has a way of making the fur feel really lifelike. You can see the light coming from behind the fur, and it makes this beautiful, beautiful look to the actual edges of the fur. A lot of the things you'll see with his larger illustrations will usually have a beautiful background and one or more characters usually doing either like a couple dancing or walking on the beach, or a lot of the times it's also on the fantasy side of things too. His backgrounds with nature are one of the most inspiring things to look at. It's almost like level 100 Bob Ross became a furry and started doing the backgrounds. The trees, the mountains, the water, the sunlight, the perspective, and the color of everything that ties it together. I think Thanshuhai has a really great way of taking people's characters and truly bringing them to life. I think all great artists do that, but he has a way of just turning them into a real thing. Like one of the closer representations of if I saw my persona right in front of me, what would they look like? When it comes to Thanshuhai's commissions, there tends to be a decent amount of time between when they open because he is usually in very high demand. I think if I was to try and get a Thanshuhai commission, I would probably go with what he calls an illustration commission, because those works that he makes are they're so beautiful. They're almost like a furry masterpiece for your persona. It would be wonderful to have one with either like a friend or obviously with a significant other. If you were celebrating an anniversary, it would make a wonderful anniversary piece to have. Like I said, I think Thanshuhai is probably one of the biggest names in the painting world in the furry community, and you can tell why. I think he has a distinct style, but also just really consistent beauty, whether it's just in a headshot or obviously in these amazing illustrations. So if you want something really special for your character or really special for someone that you really love, I think Thanshuhai would be an amazing option for you to check out. Second on the list for today is an artist whose style I really, really adore, and she goes by Moon. Moon's actual username on most of the internet is Vollmondsekunde. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's German for full moon second. Get it? Full moon second. She's second on the list. I think I found her artwork through Twitter one day, and it really caught my eye because she has like this almost impressionistic style of furry artwork. Like if you've ever looked at Monet paintings or Van Gogh, it really reminds me of some elements that they have where the way that certain textures are developed reminds me of how an impressionist would go about doing those things, whether it's with the lighting or with air. One of the words that I would use to describe her is just serene. So many of her works, whether they're sad or happy, have this really like peaceful mood to them. One of the things that I love that she does is she uses this sort of glitter to make lighting, and she'll use that to kind of make things glisten in the artwork. I love the way she develops textures and things like the sky, where there's a lot of different lines kind of swirling around each other. In the water, there's also this motion where you can really tell that it's a stream kind of moving, but it's somewhat abstract as well. And then the way that she paints trees and flowers is just beautiful. Again, it reminds me a little bit of Monet and how he would go about doing the same thing. I was actually lucky enough to win a little art raffle from her on Twitter, and I got to have artwork of my dear persona Ike done by her. And it was so nice to have such a unique and wonderful take on Ike. He has these cool little magic effects around him and stuff that I would never think to actually add. A lot of her artwork to me seems like stuff that you would find like in an actual art museum. I really like her style and then just the way that she uses lines and shapes. And I know that sounds really basic because that's what art is, essentially, is like lines and shapes and color. But she just uses them, like especially dots with the glitter and lines in ways that you don't see from other artists. She approaches things from a very different way, and I love the results that come from that. I believe her commissions are also done through Twitter. You can usually check on there for a pinned tweet letting you know if the commissions are open or closed. I think out of all the painters on this list, she's going to give you the most unique take on your character. And I don't think there's anybody else doing what she's doing. I think she's the only one that I've been able to find so far that's doing anything like that. So that was Moon, or Vollmondsekunde. Next on our list, we have a very inspiring artist who has a very charming style, and that is Jacato. I think the word that I would use to describe Jacato's art would be charming. And I say this because I really can't help but smile whenever I look at his work. I really adore the way that he draws eyes. I think that's where a lot of the charm comes from. I mean, just look at this cute llama. Have you seen a cuter llama? Because I have not. When I was going through a lot of his illustrations, I liked the backgrounds a lot. He just has a style that makes me think of something that I would want to see in a video game. And it turns out that that's actually something that he does. He actually draws backgrounds for a video game called Tangletorn. Tangletorn originally started as a Kickstarter project and now has a full staff working on the game. And you can see some of his amazing background illustrations in that game as well. This background from Tangletorn reminds me a lot of like a Miyazaki film, which I love. Other than Jacato's art, there's a couple other things that I'm really fascinated by with him. He does have a print shop where you can get printed versions of some of his amazing artwork. My personal favorite is this one, which is called Somewhere in the Forest Green. But something I really like seeing is that he has these art summaries, which other artists do as well. But if you look at his 2018, 2019, and 2020 art summaries, you see massive strides just going from 2018 to 2020. It's so inspiring to me, and I hope it is to you, because there is a lot of truth in that if you do something consistently and really think about ways that you can make it better every time, as long as you just keep hiking up, eventually you'll be at the top of the mountain that you thought you could never get to the top of. And you can see that with his art. He has made massive strides and is just making incredible art. His commission forms open through Twitter, and the two main things that it looks like he has on there are called headshots and speed paints, which are like the concept pieces with the backgrounds and those elements in it. I think if I was to commission Jacato, I would probably have something with maybe one other character, like a friend or a significant other. And I think he's an inspiration for any of us creative people that want to improve, whether it's in music or art or anything. I don't know why this list has just so many difficult names on it, but I'm just gonna go for it anyway. Next up is Berubeswagos. I think if I was to use a word to describe, it looks like his first name is Austin, so we're just going to call him Austin. If I had one word to describe Austin's artwork, it would probably be cute, and that's specifically spelled K-Y-O-O-T, okay? It's more politically correct that way. I think his portraits that he does of people and their headshots are cute. Like Jacato, I love a lot of the eyes that he draws. They just have a lot of life to them, even when they're closed. I like the texture of his art as well. It's got a very canvasy feel to it. You can see it in the way that he draws fur, in the way that he does some of his shading. I really like his backgrounds as well. The nature ones that he does are just very pretty. They're just gorgeous backgrounds. And then he has some urban ones where he's got people walking through a city, and I like the lighting that comes out on those ones. They almost remind me of some of the old Kingdom Hearts mini movies. When I look at his artwork, I can just tell that people that get artwork from him are probably very, very happy with it. And it seems like he does a great job at making things really personal for people. It looks like his commissions are done through Twitter. He's got a Trello page that's got his pricing and terms of service on it as well. I think if I was to commission him, I'd probably do like a headshot with like a meadow in the background is probably what I'm seeing, just because I like the way that he draws nature. It's just really fun, and I know I'd be really happy with it. So that was Berubeswagos. Last but not least, we have another artist who is just close to a giant in the digital painting world in the furry community, and that is Nomax. I think I would use two words to describe Nomax's art. Just wow. I think it's very easy to tell right away whenever you start looking at Nomax's art that he is a frickin' pro. His work is on the same level of, I would say, proficiency as maybe what a lot of people would associate with Thanshuhai, but Nomax's work has a little bit more of like an edgy feeling to it. It actually retains like a canvasy look to it as well if you look at all the brush strokes. And because of that, his artwork has a lot of really neat texture to it. At the same time, it's a very modern take based on the content that he's drawing and obviously the methodology that he's using. A lot of people will commission him for like a full body fantasy-esque piece. So you'll see things like lightsabers, and the way that he does light in general is really beautiful with things like lightsabers or just a light glare in the distance, or even just in a dark room with light coming into that room and making things feel very lifelike. This is another artist who I wish I could just get a piece from them and then frame it in like a castle that I lived in. I think he would be really like a go-to if you wanted some kind of crazy fantasy art for your character. It looks like his commissions open through his gallery, so I think that's like on Fur Affinity and Twitter and Instagram. And his terms of service and pricing are also on his website. If I was to commission something from Nomax, it's hard to say. I really like his portraits. In a lot of furry art, we have like really happy characters, like, and I do that too. I mean, Ike, my deer character, is just a generically happy deer, but the portraits make the character look like it's a person that has some depth to them. Like even if they're happy sometimes, you know, they've been through something. Like they look like they've got a real background that we don't know about. I think if I was to do a full illustration, I think it would be sick to have one of my personas with like a keyblade. I'd probably do something like Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy-esque if that was possible. If you wanted something just outright amazing and beautiful to represent your persona or any other characters you have, cannot go wrong with Nomax. So that was Nomax. And that is it. I had such a blast looking at these digital painters because, again, I think it's probably my favorite style. Looking at their art makes me want to practice painting because it's probably the thing that I love the most as far as our visual artwork goes in the furry community. So many of the artists on this list are so young too. Like some of them are younger than me by like a good bit, and I'm just like, how are you this talented at what you're doing? The other reason I was having so much fun is because every time I go through their gallery and find stuff, I find some other artists that they like retweeted on Twitter or favorited or something, and I find more amazing artists that do painting or even just some non-digital painting, or them helping out artists that are trying to get better and improve their work. It's so awesome. I love the aspects of this community where people are like helping each other just make better art and share other art that they love. I hope you liked the artwork we looked at today just as much as I did. Like last time, if you want to check out any of these artists, they will be linked down in the description. Please give them a follow and a like. They're amazing. If there's any artists that you want me to take a look at, you can let me know in the comments here, or I also have linked in the description my own Twitter and Fur Affinity, or if you just want to say hi and talk about furry stuff. So that's it for this week's video. I'm Renard Fox, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!